Hi, welcome to God and Good for Girls. My name is Isabella Hansen, and today we are going to be talking about Christian femininity in relation to fashion and the way we carry ourselves. So I'm really sorry that this episode took so long to get done. I definitely have been working on it a lot, but I've also had to work on a college application, and obviously Halloween stuff is kind of crazy. So I'm hoping to get things done on time for the vast majority of the time, but every now and then it's gonna come down to the wire and just get pushed to the side. So that's just my little blurb. Yeah, pretty busy, but I'm hoping to get some things sorted out. And that's that for why this episode is so late. Sorry. So, a lot of Christian girls have been fooled into thinking they have to look and act a specific way in order to fit within Christian culture and be considered a Christian girl. Some things that are included in this would be, for example, not wearing too many colors, but you have to wear some colors. Your outfits not having too much shape to them, but they have to have some shape. And not wearing too much makeup, but you have to wear some makeup. Of course, not every Christian group is going to have these standards, but these are standards that I have seen quite commonly, and I want to address them. The thing is, the way Christian girls are expected to dress is a way that a lot of people would enjoy dressing, and I don't blame them for that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is when we make that the way Christian girls are societally expected to dress and conduct themselves. There are several aspects of this that I want to address. The first is the tomboy aspects. Christian girl fashion has been growing more and more feminine in recent years in response to the backlash against feminism that is finally happening. However, it is still marked by a lot of jeans and other kinds of pants and hardly any skirts or dresses. And this can be perfectly harmless if that's what you enjoy wearing, but I think that there might be a little bit more under the surface. Many of us have grown up with female protagonists in movies, TV shows, books, who are not like other girls. They reject high heels with a passion, scorn makeup, don't care at all what's in fashion, and have many other unusual characteristics to them. These characters are portrayed as deeper and more intelligent than the other girls around them. The antagonists, of course, are extremely shallow girls. They're not very intelligent, and they cover this up with fashion and makeup and high heels and all the like. They do their hair all fancy, they put on their fancy dresses and their fancy whatever, and they parade about like peacocks. They're doing this because they're vain and they're shallow. This kind of media that contains this I'm not like other girls character, who is so much deeper than the girls who like wearing feminine things, is quite damaging. It trains girls and women to see people who dress fancy and care about their appearance as vain and selfish and immature. Now, can they be these things? Absolutely. But that just because you see somebody who's dressed up all fancy doesn't mean you have the right to cast them as a villain in your personal, mental, high school Y2K drama. Another problem is when we see things like girls who enjoy pants, short hairstyles, and generally have a disinterest in pretty things becoming the norm. I mean, these are traditionally masculine traits, and when we put these two traits, this disinterest in pretty things and this deepness side by side, we get something that is quite problematic. This subconsciously trains the reader or watcher to view traits that are not inherently masculine as masculine because they're placed on the same level and consistently embodied by people who do portray traits that are traditionally masculine. For example, if you have some girl who's disinterested in just generally pretty things and some girl who's intelligent and they're the same girl, and you have that over and over and over again in your media, people are going to pick up on that and they're going to associate this more masculine characteristic of being disinterested in pretty things with the characteristic of being intelligent and mature, and that becomes a serious problem. It's kind of hilarious from the perspective of like an extreme non-feminist, because these characters are supposed to be these hardcore feminist icons, and yet they're subconsciously teaching young girls that in order to embody traits like intelligence and depth of character, they have to embody masculine traits, as if intelligence and depth of character are not inherently feminine and are inherently masculine. We're basically being taught that if we want to be successful, if we want to be strong, then we have to be masculine. We're being taught that we need to lose a lot of our feminine aspects in order to be successful and intelligent. In order to show depth of character, you have to show that you're not interested in the pretty little things. One of the most powerful kinds of characters in fiction is a woman who dresses like a woman and acts like a woman and carries herself like your traditional girly girl kind of girl, and is still extremely intelligent and is good at what she does. She earns her positions. She earns everything she has because she is actually qualified for it and she's actually intelligent enough for it, regardless of whether she's wearing pants. It's quite ironic when you think about it. Women talk about things like, oh, we fought for the right to wear pants, we fought for the right to wear all these things and act all these ways. But here's the trick. This is actually more sexist than the alternative. We're being taught that in order to be serious and in order to be taken serious, in order to be successful, we need to put on some pants, cut our hair short, and act in a professional manner. The professional manner is inherently masculine. We're being taught, we're being showed that if you want to be good, if you want to be strong, you need to be masculine. You can't be feminine and still embody strong intellectual traits. You have to be masculine. When we go about our business in such a way that we are conducting ourselves in a more masculine way in the professional workplace than we would in the rest of our lives, we are playing into this sexist profiling of us. We're playing into this sexist profiling that women are inherently weaker in the intellectual and other areas, and that men are stronger. I honestly think that it would have been better for us as women if we had never put on the pants and decided to just earn our place as women in the workplace when we need to be there, while still wearing skirts. And of course, this is very biased because I love skirts, but I'm still saying skirts are inherently feminine. Men don't wear skirts. It's okay to wear pants and have short hair, but we need to maintain that feminine side of ourselves, that side of ourselves that says, I'm not ashamed of the gender I was born with. God made me who I am for a reason. At the end of the day, how you dress and how you carry yourself are not indicative and are not the key factor in whether or not you are intelligent and competent. A threadbare rug can have just as much depth of floor as a bright pink fluffy rug. The other aspect of the specific expectations of Christian girls is our aesthetic. I've seen a lot of Christian influencers online, and they usually either have an old money or clean girl aesthetic. And this is perfectly fine if you enjoy that. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it becomes a problem when we are pressuring young women to go in the direction of a certain look just because we think that that's how a Christian should look. And if I know that I'm going to be around one of those people, then I'll probably put something on that's more toned down than normal, in keeping with 1 Corinthians 8 principles. However, I find this to be an often highly exaggerated stance. Christians can have a range of styles and preferences and still be Christians. There is nothing wrong with wanting to wear a bright pink dress sometimes. If you want to wear a bright pink dress, you want to wear a bright pink dress. And that's not going to make you less of a Christian. Christian women need to be conducting their lives and their appearance in a way that corresponds with the boundaries of their conscience. We should not be shaming these girls just because they're not as modest as we would particularly like, as long as they're still objectively not inappropriate. Some examples of being objectively inappropriate would be things like wearing a see-through shirt with nothing under it. That would be inappropriate. I would consider bikini type things in most, if not all, settings to be inappropriate. And there are just other things like that, where it's like, this is not helpful to anybody. There's no way you could put this on and say, I feel modest today. So that's basically just like objective appropriateness as far as clothing is the bare minimum. And most Christians are not going to go near that bare minimum. Now, when I said that we shouldn't shame people, I didn't mean that you can't ask people to dress more modestly around you. You absolutely have the right to do that. However, we need to be doing this in love and humility. We are not called to be Karens. Humans tend to be naturally pretty categorical. We like things to be in categories, and we like people to be in categories. And when we are in a category, we want the people in that category to fit our idea of what that category should look like as much as possible. And I'm absolutely guilty of this too. But God does not call us all to be exactly the same. God doesn't call us all to be clones. We can be in the same category, a church, and be different from one another. In fact, God actually thinks that this is a great thing. We can find that in 1 Corinthians 10. It's all about spiritual gifts and how a body needs a variety of parts in order to function. Here are some key verses from that. 1 Corinthians 4-7. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who empowers them all in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. And 1 Corinthians 18-20. But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. While this passage is primarily about spiritual gifts, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say that it could also be applied to personalities. We need different personalities in our church to make a church function. If everybody thinks exactly the same, we're never going to get anything done because we're never going to be able to see our own flaws. And I'd love to talk more about that later, but that's not really what we're getting into right now. I am saying, though, that people's personalities tend to carry over into their appearance and then the way they carry themselves. So remember, next time you see a Christian girl in a slightly strange outfit, don't automatically condemn her. Don't automatically assume that you are far more sanctified than her, because you don't know that. She could just be a girl who has a different personality than you, and because of that different personality, she can contribute unique and special things to the church that maybe you can't. And because your personality is different from hers, you can contribute things that she can't contribute. We are all called to do different roles in the body of Christ, and that is a beautiful and glorious thing. I'm so sorry if this episode wound up being way more choppy and way more confusing than normal. I'm not running on very much sleep. I had to get up early for a parade that I was in today, so I am obviously not at 100%, and I wish this video could have been longer, but I would be happy to expand on these topics more in the future. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe so we can share God's truth around the world. God bless, and Soli Deo Gloria.